Hello and welcome back to KSP POV, where we play Kerbal Space Program in first person. As you can tell from the title, we are going to spend the whole of today's episode focusing on the build aspect, and we are going to put together a space station for our agency's next big project. I'm not going to be doing too much commentary on this. I think I'm going to let a lot of it kind of speak for itself, but I may chime in here and there on certain parts just to either let you know what I'm doing or to kind of give you an idea of where we're going to be going from there. But as far as the actual launch of that goes, we're going to have to wait on that until upcoming episode. So here we are, starting off in KSC, nice and stormy. It's a good day to spend inside in the VAB designing instead of out in the air testing. We do have a bunch of science to spend, but we're not going to focus on that just yet. First things first we're going to do is look at our contracts and see what kind of stuff we have. And we have some room for more contracts, so let's go in here and grab anything that is relevant to a space station, such as that, such as that. There's a bunch of contracts that we're going to actually be utilizing here. This is not going to be the last time we come visit. We're going to be doing some of our tourism contracts too, but we'll get to that. For now, let's jump into the VAB and start our new project. So first off, we are going to have a probe core, because ultimately, regardless of how many pilots we have in this is still needing to be controlled by mission control. So I don't have any junctions, four-way junctions, so we're just going to go ahead and make our own using some empty fuselages. We place them in such a way that we now have a junction box that we can put docking ports on, and we can connect other things to them from there. So first things first, we gotta put spots for our Kerbals. Mobile processing lab for 2 scientists. We have a landing can for just extra room for engineers and pilots and stuff. And then we have a cupola for just any random Kerbal who wants to go in there and check it out. We go ahead and put some bunch of life support on there, and then we start to build out the rest of the station. This is going to be its active engine. If we need to get somewhere, that's going to take us where we need to go. So now it's time to put on some batteries. So at first I decided to make it as a module, but then changed my mind and make it part of the actual space station itself. And instead we'll make the module be the solar panels. So we get this nice little girder out. But then I decided I wanted to make the solar panels connected to the... I don't want to have to send up the solar panels as a secondary craft. I want it to come along with, that this space station could be self-contained right from the get-go, that we don't have to send up anything else in order to complete its contract. So I go ahead and take that girder and I throw a bunch of solar panels on there, the extra large ones. I'm also going to take the time to make this communications network attached to it as well. So I take a big relay dish and then I put a smaller relay dish on there as well to kind of add to it. And then as you can see, this is how our solar panel is going to go. I'm very happy with that. And then now we're just taking our robotics and stowing them against the side. So hopefully we'll be able to have a fairing big enough that we can just put everything in there, and then when it's time to deploy it, they'll just deploy safely and easily. So now we go to one of the other coupling stations, and we start adding on an escape craft for our Kerbals, if we need to bring them back home, they'll be able to hop into this little craft right here and come on back. But I don't finalize that. That's very rough. It doesn't even have any parachutes or anything, so. But we will come back to that one. And I think about just doubling it up to make it even for symmetry, but then I think, why waste that? We don't need 2 escape crafts. We can do other stuff. So I'm going ahead and putting some stuff on some action groups. I'm not going to be putting too many things on action groups just because I don't want to bog down the system and get myself confused. So primarily the only action groups that this thing is going to have is the deploy stage to just open up all the solar panels. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on our life support, and we're going to make a little module that will take care of that. So now we have the water, food, and oxygen, and then we put a decoupler on for our waste products, and we go ahead and put some separatrons on there as well, so that way when those fill up, we can actually just jettison them. Then we put some fuel tanks and an engine on there to get it to be its own craft. And we put some RCS on there so we can better control it, and some monopropellant to give the RCS something to do. I put this little light on here because that's going to help immensely when it comes to docking. So yeah, so the idea is that anytime the space station needs supplies, we can send up one of these little modules to dock with it, and it will refuel all the supplies it needs, and then we can take all the waste and get rid of it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our mission control and grab the contract for, oh, there is another space station contract that I grabbed. The contract that we grabbed was to hold a space camp. As you see right here, we have about 20 Kerbals or 15 Kerbals that we need to bring up into space for a couple days. Actually about a month if I remember correctly. We gotta bring them up there for a while and just let them float around, and what better way to do that than to have them board the International Space Station. So here we're just going to make our little tourist bus. This is very similar to any of the other tourist buses that we've made in our series so far. Just 2 giant jumbo cans, a Mach 3 on top, and a bunch of life support to last them the entire time. Some batteries, some ways of producing power, and of course a bunch of parachutes. We're using the stage recovery mod here to really tell us whether or not we have enough to bring us down. It's very helpful. Even without the actual passive recovering of stages where you put enough parachutes on them and then just let them go, and if you did enough, then they'll be rescued. More than that is actually just calculating whether or not the parachutes you have will rescue the thing that you're trying to rescue. So that's good. And then right here opposite of the tour bus, we just decided to stick another extra large tank, and that's probably just going to be storage, fuel storage, I think. Alright, and then now lastly, for the last module of it, we're going to work on a lander, because this is going to be going to the Mun. Because it's going to the Mun, and because we have a mobile processing lab on it, we should get as much science as we can, and so that means we're going to be taking science from different biomes around the Mun and adding them to the space station. So of course we're going to need a lander. So this is a funky little design, but since we don't have to bring it through the atmosphere or anything, we can just we can afford to make it a little funky. So I play around with how the inside of this service bay is going to be. I go through several different designs, but ultimately I'm pretty happy with how it goes. But of course we don't test this, so there's no telling on how well this design is going to go until we actually utilize the thing. So just filling it with some science experiments. Throw an extra couple batteries in there. A light just so we can see everything that we're doing, and then I remove all of them from symmetry. I don't add them to the action groups, but I also don't need to. There had been an update since the last time we played KSP POV, and in one of the raster prop monitors on the inside has an update now to access the science units, so you can access the science units straight from the raster prop monitor inside the capsule. So we're gonna try that out because, like I said, I don't want to make too many action groups to get confused here in the space station. So we're gonna utilize that. So there we go. We've got our return lander. We've got our science lander. We've got our space camp tour bus, and we've got some extra fuel. We've got all the communication dishes and satellite or solar panels that we're gonna need. So now I'm just putting on some RCS on certain pieces. Alright, so now it's going to be time to start making some sub-assemblies. So I just made the escape hatches sub-assembly. We're going to make everything is going to be a sub-assembly, so that way we can just add it up later. So now we run crash, the testing sequence, that the simulator basically, and we take a look at our space station, and it is worse for wear. It has definitely looked better. It is jiggling all over the place. We time warp a little bit, and that slows it down, but the moment we release time warp, it starts freaking out again. So we learn something very valuable right now, and that is to auto strut. We are going to need to auto strut everything if we want to avoid this kind of cracking from happening. So first things first, we're going to need to auto strut. That's going to be the most important. It's going to be tedious, but all in all, it will make our space station survive that much longer. So let's just get rid of all that. We used advanced tweakables. We have that option turned on in the settings, and then that gives us the option to auto strut. And what we're doing here is we are auto strutting every single piece to its grandparent part. A lot of people, there's pros and cons to auto strutting to different parts. I kind of feel that the best way to do is just to strut to the grandparent part. You can strut to a root part or a heaviest part, but once you start docking things to each other, those can often get turned around and change mid-flight, and so you have a craft that's docked to, or that is strutted to its heaviest part. Once it docks to a space station, the heaviest part now becomes something completely different, and sometimes the computer wants to recalculate and restrut all the pieces to match that. But if it's attached to the grandparent part, then that part will always be the same part no matter what you attach anything to. So that's the best way of just keeping your auto strutting in the same position every time. So now that we've strutted, we can now actually start putting everything into a fairing and getting it ready for launch. This fairing is too small, and I luck out by having a fairing large enough, so thankfully that works out, because this would not be able to fly up without a fairing. I think it would break upon all the atmospheric pressures, and it would just be no good for anybody. So in the last minute, I throw some ladders along the sides of it, because I know that Kerbals will probably EVA at some point, and we may need them to hold on to something, so ladders. And as per usual, we use our cryo tank side boosters with matching Pila engines. We're auto starting these as well. It's a very long craft, and so we want to make sure that it has as much rigidity as possible. And we don't have enough delta V to get ourselves into orbit, so we just double up on the side boosters and asparagus stage them. And then that should be more than enough. So we saved that one as its launch vehicle. Now it's time to create this one, because these are all going to be launched up separately. Each piece is going to be added in in orbit. And I adjust the solar panels to be even, but I don't adjust the monopropellant or the RCS thrusters. I don't know why. It bugs me after the fact. I looked at that, I'm like, why didn't I move those? But apparently not. And at the last minute, I throw some communication on there just in case. It's going to be piloted by a Kerbal, so we're not going to absolutely need it, but it can't hurt. And now I also don't put on an in-space vacuum engine. I only have my lifting stage on here, so when we do eventually launch this craft, we may want to add a mid-stage to get us from orbit to rendezvous, so that way we don't have to use up too much fuel out of the craft itself. So there you go, we have our escape pod. And I jumped back to the station because I realized I forgot to put wings on it. Very important. Alright, so now it's time to package up our life support. This one's going to be a lot easier than the rest because it's a lot lighter than the rest. But this too is going to be getting some auto strutting, going along the way, going all the way down. And then I also need to put some communications on this, and then that's important because this will not be piloted. And that too can also use with a little bit more of a higher stage to maneuver it towards the actual space station itself. But then again, it's also a lot lighter, so our lower stage may be a little more efficient getting it up and rendezvoused with the craft than the other spacecrafts we've created. Alright, now time to package up the Space Camp space bus. I accidentally duplicate it. That freezes up the program a little bit. There we go. We put a camera on there because this is POV after all. And then we auto strut it, just like all the others. And since it's a bigger, heavier piece, we give it a much longer lifting engine than we do on the other ones. And we double up the side boosters as well. I don't know why I didn't put in a fairing. I just realized that I didn't actually put this thing into a fairing. I guess it doesn't need it because it is, relatively aerodynamic, but it's just surprising that I didn't. Alright, now we strut the lander. Less important, but might as well do everything we can. And then we put on a camera for the lander. Very excited to use the Alcor pod once again, and but this time we won't have to fear bringing it back through the atmosphere and exploding on impact, because it's not meant to come back to the atmosphere. This one will just stay with the station, and then if we need to bring anybody back, we can have our Mach 3 command pod rescue craft, which is designed for it. So we are moving up in the world. So we go, checked our staging. And that is the last vehicle that we are going to be needing to put together. This whole space station is going to cost $1.9 million to make, so we are not going to be able to launch this just yet, But in coming episodes, we're going to be doing some contracts that will make it possible, and I'm very excited to show you that. We've already got it filmed, so look forward to that. But anyways, this is where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward to more KSP POV. I'm so excited to get back into this series and continue on. If you liked it, please consider giving me a like, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.